The crisp winter air in South Korea is known for its biting chill, but nothing could compare to the frost that settled in Kim Taehyung's heart as he watched Jungkook, his closest friend and fellow BTS member, prepare to leave once again for military service. Why was Jungkook leaving so soon? Why did Taehyung's usually warm, comforting gaze seem clouded with sorrow? Was there something more to this departure than just another routine return to duty? The past few weeks had been a whirlwind of emotions, and no one could have predicted the sudden turn of events that led to Taehyung standing outside a military hospital, his breath visible in the cold night air, watching as Jungkook readied himself to return to his unit. It all started with a military training exercise that went terribly wrong. Jungkook, like many of his fellow enlisted soldiers, had been undergoing extreme winter survival training, an excruciating experience designed to test endurance, willpower, and the limits of human resilience in sub-zero conditions. The training, meant to prepare soldiers for potential combat in the harshest winter climates, pushed them through relentless blizzards, physical exhaustion, and limited resources for warmth. Jungkook, always one to push himself beyond expectations, had been giving it his all, determined to meet every challenge head-on. But sometimes, even the strongest hearts and bodies falter. Reports suggest that Jungkook suffered from prolonged exposure to extreme cold, leading to a near collapse. And that was when Taehyung received the call. No one outside the BTS members and their closest circle knew just how fast Taehyung had rushed to the hospital the moment he got word of Jungkook's condition. It wasn't just concern, it was raw, unfiltered panic. Witnesses at the military hospital recall seeing Taehyung arriving in a flurry, his face tight with worry, his usual composed demeanor completely shattered. He was asking questions before the car even stopped, an anonymous source stated. He wanted to know if Jungkook was conscious, if he had spoken, if he was in pain. Jungkook had been stabilized, but the ordeal had left him weak, exhausted, and temporarily unable to return to training. Taehyung had stayed by his side, refusing to leave, as if fearing that Jungkook might slip away the moment he looked away. But what Taehyung didn't expect, what he couldn't have expected, was how soon Jungkook would decide to return to duty. Jungkook is known for his determination, his ability to persevere no matter the circumstances. Despite still recovering, he made it clear that he didn't want special treatment. "I'm fine, Hyung," he had said, his voice hoarse yet unwavering. "I need to go back." Taehyung, however, wasn't convinced. "How is this fine, Jungkook? How can you even think about going back already?" Taehyung had reportedly asked, his voice thick with emotion. "You almost." He had stopped himself, unable to complete the sentence. Jungkook had simply smiled, a quiet, knowing smile that only deepened Taehyung's pain. "It's my duty, Taehyung. You know that." And that was when reality hit. The moment had come. Jungkook, despite still bearing the effects of his extreme training, was heading back. There were no cameras, no screaming fans, just two friends standing in the cold, one refusing to let go, the other trying to reassure him with silent strength. Taehyung wasn't one to cry easily, but those who were there that night say they saw his eyes glisten with unshed tears. He had done his best to be strong, to be supportive, but this wasn't just about military duty. This was about watching someone he cared for walk back into a place that had nearly taken him away. Just a little longer. Taehyung had pleaded in a whisper, though he knew Jungkook couldn't stay. Jungkook had placed a comforting hand on his shoulder, squeezing it lightly before turning away. "I'll be okay, Hyung." And then, he was gone. With Jungkook back in the military camp, questions linger. Will he truly be alright? Is he pushing himself too hard? And what about Taehyung? Will he be able to shake the uneasy feeling that settled in his heart the moment he let go? One thing is certain. This goodbye, unlike any they had shared before, was heavier, more uncertain. And for the first time, Taehyung was left wondering, when would he see Jungkook again? And would he come back unscathed? The days after Jungkook's departure felt eerily quiet for Taehyung. He returned home, but it didn't feel like home. The usual vibrance of his surroundings, his music playing in the background, the comforting warmth of a shared space, had dimmed. Every time he reached for his phone, his fingers hovered over Jungkook's contact, hesitating. Should he call? Should he text? Would Jungkook even be allowed to respond? He knew the answer. Soldiers on active duty weren't always able to use their phones freely, and even if Jungkook had the chance, he'd likely be too exhausted to reply. Still, the silence gnawed at him. He tried to keep himself busy, diving into his own training schedules and upcoming projects. But no matter what he did, the image of Jungkook's departing figure haunted him. The way the younger man had smiled, a smile filled with quiet determination yet burdened with exhaustion, was imprinted in his mind. Though the BTS members were now scattered, with each fulfilling their own military duties or individual projects, they remained closely connected. And it wasn't just Taehyung who felt the weight of Jungkook's sudden return to camp. Jin, the eldest, had reached out first. "I heard about Jungkook. How are you holding up?" "I'm fine," Taehyung had responded, but even he didn't believe his own words. Jimin, always in tune with emotions, had been more direct. "You're not okay, Taehyung. None of us are." Namjoon, ever the leader, tried to reassure him. "Jungkook is strong. He wouldn't go back if he didn't think he could handle it." But Taehyung wasn't convinced. "That's exactly what I'm afraid of," he admitted. "That he thinks he has to handle it, even when he can't." The unspoken truth hung between them. Jungkook was known for pushing himself beyond his limits. Would he do it again? And if he did, who would be there to stop him this time? Days turned into weeks, and though Taehyung tried to shake the unease, it never truly left him. Then, one evening, just as he was about to force himself to sleep, his phone buzzed a message. But it wasn't a text, it was a letter. Jungkook had written to him. Taehyung's hands trembled as he opened it, his heart pounding. "Hyung, I know you're worried. I could see it in your eyes when I left. I didn't want to go without saying more, but I knew if I stayed even a second longer, I wouldn't have been able to leave at all, but I won't lie. It's hard. The training is brutal. The nights are colder than I remembered, and sometimes, when I close my eyes, I still see you standing there, looking at me like you were trying to hold me in place with just your gaze." Taehyung stared at the letter for what felt like an eternity. Then, for the first time in weeks, he let himself cry, not out of fear, not out of sorrow, but out of relief. Jungkook was still Jungkook, strong, resilient, and always thinking of others before himself. And though the worry in Taehyung's heart would never truly fade until they were reunited, he found comfort in knowing that, no matter how far apart they were, their bond remained unbreakable. He wiped his tears, exhaled shakily, and, just as Jungkook had asked, forced himself to smile, because no matter how long the wait, one thing was certain: Jungkook would come back. And when he did, Taehyung would be there, waiting,